Ian Maxwell is Gilean's brother, and he joins me now in the Uncensored studio. Ian, welcome to Uncensored. You're her brother.
This is Truth Decryptor with a Bombshell exclusive. Ian Maxwell, brother of Gilean Maxwell, breaks his silence on Epstein's scandal, court battles, and explosive family secrets. From immunity deals and alleged miscarriages of justice to controversial photos and witness claims, this segment unpacks the most emotional, jaw-dropping revelations yet around one of the decade's darkest conspiracies.
Gilean, so let me start by asking you for your reaction to two bits of breaking news today. The first was that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, has directed for her deputy to go and see Gilean in prison. What is your response to that, first of all?
Well, you really have to ask yourself, why didn't the DOJ ask to speak to Gilean before they indicted her? Why is it only now? And the reason I say that is because in 2019, after Epstein died and up until Gilean's own arrest in 2020, she was, to the best of her knowledge and her lawyer's knowledge, not a target. She remained in the United States. They made her, Gilean, available for questions and kept on being said, she's not a target, she's not a target. Suddenly, bang, 60 officers come down on a house in New Hampshire where she was, huge show, this part of arrest and so forth, and then there is a disgraceful press conference organized by the DOJ's attorney in New York, and she is pointed at with a picture of Epstein, the subtext being, this woman is guilty. So we considered that all of that entire process was prosecutorial misconduct. And finally, they decided that they want to talk to her.
So you think it should have been done years ago?
Of course.
The second development is that the House Oversight Committee, Congress, has voted to subpoena Gilean. Will she be willing, from your understanding, will she be willing to talk to both the Deputy Attorney General and to be deposed by the United States Congress?
Well, this has happened quite literally, and I've only heard it, as you have at the same time, in the last 5 minutes about the Republicans deciding that they're going to subpoena her. At the moment, Gilean's lawyer, David Oscar Marcus, has indicated that he is talking to the government to set up this originally requested meeting with Todd Blanche. Once this is going on, you need to be aware that Gilean is involved in multiple live legal proceedings. She has a live petition in front of the Supreme Court. The government has chosen to oppose that. The same DOJ that is wanting to interview her is opposing her simultaneously. It's quite an unusual position, but that is what the position is. So she has to respond and has to rebut that opposition. That's one set of proceedings ongoing. Then she has to decide how to deal with this particular request that's come in from the DOJ. Now we know that there's a subpoena request coming into Congress, which has to be considered. And in addition to all of that, she has a live, not yet live legally, but in the process of being prepared, motion, which is known as a habeas corpus motion, to be brought in front of the district court back in New York, in which she's entitled to bring new evidence that was not available at her trial, showing government misconduct prior to the trial, in the trial, and post the trial, including, for example, the now, as far as we're concerned, confirmed perjury of one particular juror who perjured himself in front of the judge at the hearing brought at her request as to why he did not disclose his prior sexual abuse on the jury selection form. So all of this is to say that Gilean didn't have a fair trial. That's the bottom line. And in order to be able to deal with all of these things, while simultaneously being in prison, and a damn dangerous prison it is too. So it's very, very hard to see the sequencing of all of this.
But if she's, as you say, a victim of a miscarriage of justice, then there would be no obvious reason why she would not want to cooperate with the authorities. I mean, particularly the chance to address Congress, for example, where the whole world would watch. And if she is as innocent as you say, then isn't that the perfect opportunity?
The brother claims Gilean wants freedom through appeals, but stops short of asserting innocence, raising doubt whether public exoneration is ever on the table.
Why wouldn't she? I mean, if she doesn't do that, and she doesn't cooperate with the Attorney General's office, people are going to assume guilt, aren't they?
I don't think so. I think you have to you have to separate the agendas of everybody involved here. What is Gilean's agenda? She has been in jail over 5 years. She wants to get free. The reason she wants to be free is because the petition to the Supreme Court is one that says, I should never have been prosecuted because I was a beneficiary of the Jeffrey Epstein negotiated non-prosecution agreement. So her opening position is to say this should never have been brought.
But that's not the same as saying you're innocent.
Wait a minute. Well, the most important point is that if you should never have been prosecuted, you should never have been prosecuted. And I don't know what you have in mind when you say that.
Well, I simply say that would be a legal argument that you would be immune from being prosecuted. That doesn't mean automatically you're an innocent person. It just means that you may have been part of what many people think in relation to Epstein was a ridiculous farce in which somebody who clearly was a very predatory paedophile ends up getting an incredibly lenient sentence, albeit he remains a convicted paedophile. And so anyone associated with him in that case, if you were immune from prosecution, the court of public opinion is not going to view that as an assertion of your innocence. Summer is here and everyone knows to protect their skin from the sun. But what if you could also protect it from collagen loss and inflammation, even repairing damage you did when you were younger? Well, the good news is that you can. Something I learned from the scientists at OneSkin. They can protect your skin from UV damage and work at the cellular level to repair damage and prevent collagen loss. It's packed with science-backed ingredients, including the OS1 peptide for protection, nourishment, and repair in one step. Our sponsor, OneSkin, is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin with 15% off using code PEERS at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with code PEERS. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. So please show us your support by telling them that I sent you.
Gilean her trial took place when she had one arm tied behind her back, both physically, because she was abused significantly in the 2 years prior to trial. She was on a suicide watch, she was in an isolation cell, she was physically abused by the guards, she was woken up every 15 minutes and couldn't sleep for 2 years. So that's how she presented at trial. And then we now know that her trial was full of government misconduct from the start. She was unable to bring evidence in her own defense, on the one hand. And for example, I'll give you one example.
Well, she could have testified. She chose not to.
She was advised not to because her own defense was so, had been holed below the water by the prosecution.
But after her conviction, she did appeal, and the appeals court rejected the appeal. So going to the Supreme Court is actually the next stage of the appeals process, but she's already had a court convict her, a jury. She's then had an appeals court of 3 judges uphold that conviction.
Wow.
So I understand, listen, I would do everything I could for my sister.
Sure.
Let me be clear, okay? So I admire your attempts to get your sister out of prison, just on a human level. I understand it. And it must have been a horrendous thing for you as her brother to watch all this go down. You know, we've got a clip. She gave an interview to Talk Television, actually. We've got a clip from that.
They wake you up at 6, and you can go to breakfast, which consists of a cereal and a piece of fruit, generally. And then you have to make your bed sort of military style.
And it was quite a long interview, but I met her once at a book launch in New York. That she bore no relation physically to how she was then. I mean, just on a physical level, it's obvious what the impact of all this has had on her. But in relation to her innocence or otherwise, let's just get a few things on the table in terms of facts. From your understanding, when did she first meet Epstein? Because there is confusion about that. Some say it was an introduction by your father, Robert Maxwell, the publisher. Others say it was at a party or whatever. What's the truth?
My father was not involved.
Right.
Start with that. She met him, I believe, sometime in 1991. And either just before or just after our father died. And then was with him up until, I would say, sometime like late 90s, right? When you could consider they were
in a relationship,
an item,
right.
Correct. But this wasn't a relationship, a very standard relationship. They didn't live in the same home. He lived in his home, she lived in her home. She didn't have a key to his house. He didn't have a key to her house. So they lived, they were intimate, but he did not share with her in any way what he was doing at any given time of the day. So we know, because evidence was already available before the start of the trial, that there are emails written by Epstein to associates saying, do not show this to Gilean. Wait until Gilean has gone. Do not tell Gilean. So this is a very strange kind of situation. So I think it's entirely correct that the view of Gilean and Epstein was wrong in terms of the way that they interacted.
But in her court case, there were a number of people, not just the victims, but also housekeepers of various properties belonging to Epstein, who painted a picture of Gilean being his Miss Fix-It. She was the one that ran things. She was the one that couriered people around. She was the one that knew what he liked, even down to sexual peccadillos and so on. That she was, almost acting like his madame, for want of a better phrase. And there were a number of people, many people, who painted the same picture, that she wasn't just some peripheral lover on the side who had no knowledge of his movements. She was, in many cases, planning his movements.
Well, we now know from grand jury transcripts of the 2007-8 indictment of Jeffrey Epstein, the first time, which were released only in December 2024, so just a few months ago, by Governor DeSantis, that there is significant differences of what witnesses said, including witnesses, 3 or 4 of them, that came to the 2021 trial of Gilean, and what they said in the 2006-7 trial of indictment of Jeffrey Epstein. The defense were not provided those and could not, therefore, cross-examine the witnesses.
The revelation of withheld evidence points to possible prosecution misconduct that questions the fairness of Gilean's trial.
Including the women, the accusers, as to where this abuse took place, when this abuse took place. And it's critical because it goes to the ages of the girls in each case, not just isolated. And it goes to the veracity of core witnesses. And we know this, Piers, because of this. Their juror number 50 turned out to have lied on his jury form.
You said that, yeah.
Now, it's not just that he lied on his jury form about his prior sexual abuse, but we know because he spoke to an independent journalist of The Independent about what went on in that jury room and what influence he personally had on other jurors, and crucially on bits of evidence on what was considered important by the jury and what was not considered
Okay, but
important.
let me just, for those who are not as familiar with the case as you obviously are, and I am, the women victims who testified, Jane, Kate, and Carolyn were all pseudonyms. Annie Farmer testified under her real name. Testimony under oath from all these victims included Jane, who said that Gilean sometimes joined in on the sexualized massages with Epstein. Kate testified that Gilean had set up those sexual meetings. Carolyn testified that Gilean once touched her breasts, her hips, and her butt, told her she had a great body for Epstein and his friends. She was 14 at the time, she said. And Annie Farmer, who did give her, or wanted to testify under her real name, testified that when she was just 16, Gilean massaged her naked chest at Epstein's New Mexico ranch in 1996. Is your position that they were all lying?
Well, my position is that Gilean was never given the chance to cross-examine them properly on their testimony based on...
I understand that, but that's a different...
Based
that's a
on
different
new
question.
information
But that's a different
that
question.
was not available.
No, but that's a different question. Is your position, as her brother, who's obviously talked to her about this myriad times,
Well,
is your position that these victims are all lying?
I believe my sister. She has consistently told the truth.
In the face of damning accusations, Ian stands firm, fueling the emotional heart of this saga. Family loyalty versus overwhelming public outrage.
Her lawyer just this morning said that she fully intends to continue telling the truth. And what's interesting is that as more and more things come out, as more and more examples of misconduct come out, the truth of Gilean is also coming out. And therefore, the short answer to your question is that Gilean has denied all of this, and I believe that she is telling the truth.
But she stayed friends with Epstein after his conviction for being a paedophile.
No, I think the position is this. The relationship came to an end, I would say, round about 1999.
Right, but their friendship
in terms of an intimate relationship. Then in 2000, a key associate of Epstein by the name of Sarah Kellen was employed to do all of the arrangements of planes or whatever you will. The relationship between Gilean and Epstein at that point became essentially a professional relationship. And she was tasked with the renovations of his multiple houses and all that kind of
But
stuff.
how long did she continue to be friends with him?
This revealing 14-minute segment exposes the tangled web around Gilean Maxwell's controversial conviction, legal battles, and family defense. Ian Maxwell candidly addresses withheld evidence, prison conditions, alleged prosecutorial misconduct, and the massive political ramifications of the Epstein scandal. Tensions culminate around whether Gilean will testify under immunity and how justice will finally be served. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for ongoing deep dives into this evolving story.